oftentimes that first yin phase is actually going to be very challenging because you're thinking, oh God, I should be doing things. I should be, really controlling the environment is what it comes down to. And so allowing yourself just to practice stepping back and not making things happen can be incredibly challenging, but then very rewarding as you practice this over time. It actually cultivates much more of a sense of trust.
Namaste. You're listening to the Savannah Podcast. Join us on an exploration of Eastern spirituality, yoga philosophy, and conscious living for the new age. This podcast is a production of SavannahSpirit.com, the best place to shop for unique clothing, spiritual handcrafted jewelry, healing gemstones, and fair trade gifts from the Far East. Now, here's your host, Brett Larkin.
Hello, Savannah family. Welcome back to the show. Today we are going deeper and continuing our conversation with Ezzie Spencer, PhD. We're learning all about how to enhance our life by tuning into the natural rhythm of lunar ebbs and flows. How much do you take into account the lunar cycle in your day-to-day life right now? You might really start changing the way you do things after this week's episodes. Now, of course, we talked about this on Tuesday, so if you missed Tuesday's episode, make sure to tune in. And today we're going to go even deeper. I asked Ezzie a couple questions about whether we need to set the same intention each month or to vary it up, how to work exactly with intentions for each lunar cycle. And then what's really great is she's also going to go through in this episode the full 8-phase moon cycle because I kept asking her too many questions on Tuesday. We're going to hear all 8 phases as outlined in her book and what you should and shouldn't focus on in each of these 8 cycles. So you know our guest, and of course you know who creates and makes the show, Savannah Spirit. So take a moment before we dive into this week's episode to either leave a rating or review, or of course purchase something on savannahspirit.com. It's really the easiest way you can support this podcast and keep this content free and coming to you. I'm recommending today that you check out all of Savannah's beautiful moonstone jewelry, moonstone gems. So go to savannahspirit.com and make sure to use that podcast code, podcast30, to get 30% off your first order. So we're diving back into our conversation with Ezzie, and we talked on Tuesday about setting an intention. So this is something that seems simple, but I had a lot of questions. So if you missed Tuesday's episode, make sure to check it out. Ezzie, thank you for all the tips you gave around that. And then the next thing that you shared with us, you were talking about the crescent moon phase, which is the yin phase of the moon in your 8-phase system, which you're going to tell us more about. And you said that this is the time to sort of let the intention go and think of it like your seed has been planted and now you're just going to sort of water the garden. And then the 8 phases alternate between this yin and yang. So a question I had for you before you tell us about the other phases of the moon, as I was really curious when I was reading your book personally, do you sort of look at your digital calendar or your day planner and sort of chart what's happening with the moon before you schedule your appointments and your travel and that kind of thing? Because it seemed like you were really encouraging readers to deliberately slow down and schedule less during these yin phases. And I really loved that idea. I was just curious on how you actually made that work on a practical level.
Yes, and I feel like this is one of the real advantages in working with the moon cycle, which is a very consistent, predictable cycle, which is also changing all the time, but there is a consistency in the change. So it's something which it's a really beautiful cycle to play with in both of those ways. So what that does mean is, though, is that there is a knowledge of what's coming ahead. And I've got a moon chart with all of the yin and the yang phases and the dates of all of the yin and the yang phases for the year ahead on my website. So I do that charting at the start of the year. And I then am very mindful in the yin phases of not overscheduling myself. And this is very much me coming from a recovering, overachiever, overdoer mindset where I used to just completely, schedule myself back to back all of the time. So
can't relate to that at all. Just totally can't relate to what you're saying. Not at all.
Right. It takes a real a sense of commitment to step back from that, actually, because there's a lot of external social reinforcement around living your life in that way. And then what I would find is that I would be going and going and going and going, and then walking the line of burnout, collapsing in a heap, because that was the only way my body could tell me, please, please, please give me some rest. So working with the yin and the yang phases in this way means that I'm actually able to live life in a much more sustainable, predictable way. And it's a really helpful energy management system in that way. So in terms of what it actually looks like in my calendar, yes, if I can schedule, say, more clients, more meetings, more of the outward going things in a work sense in the yang phases, then I will. If I get an invitation for a speaking event at a conference on a yin phase, no, I'm not going to say no if I want to show up and do that speaking event. It just means that I'm going to be really, really mindful, especially mindful of my energy around it. So, for instance, rather than try to, fly up to the conference on the day and then try to get back by night, I'll give myself that opportunity maybe to go up the night before and just be a little bit more leisurely around the way that I do that, or be very conscious in my in my social life, in my personal life, what else is happening around that particular event. So there's always going to be a bit of yang in yin and always a bit of yin in yang. That's the way that it works. And certainly I can't control, none of us can completely control our external environments and the people around us, particularly, if they've got dependence on us, whether those be younger or older, people we've got to take care of, and situations where we actually do need to show up. It's not like, no, sorry, it's the yin phase, I can't actually do that today. It's around, how can I best take care of myself and my energy so that I am able to show up in the best possible way, be the best version of myself when it is time for me to be doing that. So the yin and the yang phases aren't just about the work-life balance. So it's not like about just working in a yang phase and then just lying on the beach in the yin phase. It's also around the approach to how it is that, taking the work. There's the permission to say, I'm actually going to say enough is enough on this particular project. I don't need to keep finessing it and put in extra hours and make it absolutely beyond perfect. I'm just going to be okay with the fact that, this might not be 110% in a yin phase, and put it out there, and it might be totally okay anyway. In fact, it usually is. And then it's also around, say, the exercise that I do. In a yin phase, it might be more about doing a walk or a yin yoga class rather than, going for a run on the beach or doing a more yang yoga class. It might also be around what kind of extracurricular things I'm putting on my calendar after work. So even if I do have a heavy workload during the yin phase, maybe then it's a matter of in the evenings, I'm not then adding in Skype calls and catch-ups and events and that type of thing. It's more about staying at home, eating a home-cooked meal and going to bed early and turning the phone off and not getting into all of the electronics as well. So, those are some practical examples of what that might look like in terms of my diary with the yin and the yang phases.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's really like your work schedule, social schedule, and then even your physical workouts, you're sort of taking into account what's going on with the moon.
Absolutely. And then this is always meant to be a practice, a guide. And so I find that over time, as you start to live in this way, as you start to really embody the practice, you don't need to be sort of, calculating exactly where the moon is at any one time. Again, the rigidity and the ritualism around it is not the point of the practice. The point of the practice is around to have more joy and ease and flow. But there is that greater self-awareness that you're able to cultivate as you pay attention in this way, and it starts to become more of a natural, effortless flow in life.
And maybe you can tell listeners a little bit more now about why you love this 8-phase system of the moon, because they might be used to working with the moon just more on like a monthly cycle, and I know you say in your book you really like working with the 8 phases because it kind of gives your month a rhythm and flow, like what we're talking about right now. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I found that when I started to track the moon, I was actually tracking it every single day, and I found over a couple of moon cycles. Firstly, it wasn't really necessary, but secondly, it became a bit of a chore. It became a bit obsessive. Where is the moon today? What's going on today? And at first, that was fine as I was starting to find out about it. But then over time, I was like, well, I just want something which is going to really complement and enhance my life and not be taking up a huge amount of mental bandwidth. So that was why I sort of abandoned the every single day moon phase practice. And then the working with the moon, like the waxing moon, the first 2 weeks of the cycle or thereabouts, and then the waning moon, the second 2 weeks or thereabouts in the cycle, which is another way of working with the moon, to me didn't actually seem to have much practical application or relevance in my actual day-to-day life. I don't think sort of 2 weeks of waxing and starting projects and 2 weeks of waning and sort of resting, it just didn't really seem to make sense to me. I had full-time work and business and all kinds of things. So I wanted something that was going to give me enough of an awareness in my day-to-day life to enhance my day-to-day life, but then not really take over. But not too much and not too little.
Yeah, it's like the Goldilocks, right? Just
the
right.
Goldilocks, just right. And so the 8-phase system seemed to be the one that made the most amount of sense to me, and that's the one that I've followed for many, many years now, and it continues to make sense to me. So it's a keeper for me. And the invitation is obviously just to try it out and see whether it works for you as well. So with the new moon phase, I was going through the 8 moon phases before, and the new moon phase, the first of those 8 moon phases, is obviously a yang phase, lasts for 3 or 4 days apiece. Each one of these moon phases is lasting for 3 or 4 days apiece, and the yang and the yin phases come in pairs. So the yin phase, the first of the yin phases, is going to be the crescent moon phase, which follows the new moon phase, and that will also last for 3 or 4 days apiece. So you've got that real, it breaks down roughly in terms of a week, where half of your week will be yang, half of the week will be yin. So if you're setting an intention, say, around cultivating more ease and calm in your life at the new moon phase, and that was the intention that we were working with in the last episode, then in the new moon phase, the action, the initiating, the getting things going at that new moon phase is about setting that intention, and then thinking at that new moon phase, are there any sort of practical actions that you could take in your life where you could take some responsibility in your life for where you might not be allowing in that sense of ease and calm, and then little changes or tweaks that you can make at that new moon phase. At the yin phase, the next yin phase, the crescent moon phase, there is that invitation just to not do the how-to or the actions or whatever. Just allow yourself to breathe into your intention, really settle into your intention, just be with your intention. And if you're coming from the, overly yang, and I was very lopsided yang, very overachieving, as I've mentioned before, I needed to develop this practice for myself. I needed to develop these phases as a way of bringing more balance and harmony into my own life, of integrating more of that yin, the resting, the being into my own life. Oftentimes that first yin phase is actually going to be very challenging, because you're thinking, oh God, I should be doing things. I should be, really controlling the environment is what it comes down to. And so allowing yourself just to practice stepping back and not making things happen can be incredibly challenging, but then very rewarding as you practice this over time. It actually cultivates much more of a sense of trust and flow in life as you practice this over time. And, we're setting intentions which are for a month. So these are things for us to practice, to show up, to really be aware of. And I've got a ton of journaling exercises and much more context about each one of the phases in the book as well, if you want to go much deeper into that. The next of those moon phases is the first quarter moon phase. And so this is going to be another yang. And so this is going to be where the moon is a quarter of the way around the earth, and it appears as if it's half full in the sky. And so at this first quarter moon phase, another yang phase, if you set an intention at the start of the practice, which is more, say, around I want to cultivate more financial abundance in my life, I want more clients. The first quarter moon phase might be the time where you're actually going out into the world, and maybe you're putting out a website, a blog post, you're actually approaching people, you're doing some sales stuff. That type of thing could be an example of the more practical action that you would take at that first quarter moon phase, that yang phase. If you're working with the intention, which is more about cultivating more of a sense of ease and calm, more of that, quality-based intention, then at that first quarter moon phase, there might actually be the opportunity for you to go through your schedule, your diary, your obligations, be a little bit more savvy about how you're prioritizing things. Maybe it's about getting things off your plate by saying no to some things. Maybe it's about reprioritizing, delegating. That type of thing could be the type of action that you take at that first quarter moon phase in order to create more of that sense of simplicity and streamlining in your life. And then you take some discerning action around that. The next phase is another yin phase, the gibbous moon phase, and there is this real invitation in this phase, again, to take your foot off the gas, your fingers off the wheel, to try to just allow yourself to rest and trust that your intention is coming into form. And so at the gibbous moon phase, before the moon peaks to full, we often find that our natural patterns of wanting to race towards the climax, wanting to race towards getting things done, wanting to race towards sort of the ending, if you will, tends to be made very, very apparent. So there's a lot of reflection that can happen at this gibbous moon phase as we just allow things to unfold, to trust that we've set the right intention, that we're showing up to that intention, that we've done what it is that we need to do, and we don't need to be in constant action mode all the time. That creating more ease and calm in our life might be around allowing ourselves, to stop complicating matters, to stop adding more things onto the plate, because there's that desperate need to distract ourselves from ourselves a lot of the time, to be with the feeling world, to be with the emotional world. Very, very challenging, but so rewarding over time as we practice that. And then in the full moon phase, which is actually the 5th of the 8 phases, then there is going to be a sense of full illumination, if you will. And this is because the moon is now on the other side of the earth to the sun. It's 180 degrees away from the sun. It's reflecting all of the light of the sun back down to earth. And so again, working with the moon as a natural timekeeper, working with the moon as a mirror, working with the moon in that sort of metaphorical, symbolical sense, then we actually have got a lot of light revealed to us at this time. It can be very clear to us now the right path to go down in relation to actually bringing our intention into form, to co-creating with our intention, if you will. And so it will be an opportunity for us to take, clear steps down a very clearly illuminated, lit path towards where it is that we want to go. We also at the full moon stage often start to see some payoff. So, if you've been wanting to, have more financial abundance and grow your business, you will often perhaps get some more clients starting to come in. You might get a yes. You might have a project that goes ahead. You might get a check in the mail. There might be things that happen in that sense if you've taken the right action in the couple of weeks leading up to that. It might also be that time of that full moon, because there is that full light upon us, and our whole internal world is certainly brought to light. Then we have that opportunity for insight and revelation and realization into how we might have been co-creating patterns in our life, for instance, that might have been taking us away from what it is that we desperately want to be, what we want to cultivate more of, for example, that ease and calm. And this may sound a little abstract, but when you're actually working with an intention at the time and going through the journaling exercises, going through the practices, then there is there's often a real turning point, a real shift at that full moon phase. And if you've been working consciously with the moon cycle from the start of the cycle, from the new moon, 2 weeks ago from here, what you will often find is that, if you do find the full moon to be a challenging time, if you find a bit of an emotional roller coaster is your normal MO at the full moon phase, because you've been working very consciously throughout that entire moon cycle, there's more of a sense of agency. There's more of a sense of being able to ride the waves of life, which are often more intense at that full moon phase. If you have been showing up, constantly and creating that greater sense of emotional intelligence and self-awareness throughout the whole cycle. So that's the yang phase. And so there is that opportunity at the full moon phase to take action. Then the next phase, disseminating moon phase, is another yin phase. So the yang and the yin phase is always coming in pairs. And then there is the invitation to really be practicing gratitude at that disseminating moon phase as the moon starts to starts to wane back down from full to new. And so allow yourself to really celebrate what awareness has come into your life. Celebrate any practical things that have started to come into your life at that disseminating moon phase, and to really feel grateful. That gratitude practice, I would suggest that you practice on a daily basis as you sit with your intention throughout the entire moon cycle. But certainly take that time to really dive into that gratitude and awareness, and noticing and thanking whatever it is that's coming into your life, what opportunities are being presented to you, whether that be more on an internal world opportunity for self-realization or in a more external way. And then the next moon phase, the third quarter moon phase, another yang phase. There's an opportunity there to take any final action in order for you to really, work with your intention to bring it into form in this particular moon phase, to tie up any loose ends, if you will. And then at the yin phase, the final yin phase, so the 8th of the 8 moon phases, the balsamic phase, is that opportunity to really take stock of where you've been in the month that has just occurred. What's really happened in your life? What have you received? What have you achieved? What have you learned? And so rather than just leaping forwards into the next moon phase, leaping forwards into setting another intention at the next new moon, which is just around the corner, because there's always going to be another new moon. There's always going to be an opportunity to go further and deeper with this practice. The invitation at that balsamic moon phase is to really allow yourself to take stock, to rest, to restore, to celebrate, to pat yourself on the back, and then to move forwards of a place of much greater awareness of who you are, where you are, and why you are here on this earth at this time. What is your next step forward, and what might that feel like?
And is it okay to keep working with the same intention month after month after month? Or is it more appropriate to have different types of intentions on different seasons and different types of full moons? Or, insight there?
Yes, definitely. So it may be that you are working with an intention, which is you will see some progress in the course of a month. You'll see some shift, some change, but it may be that another layer of that intention will be revealed to you, particularly through the balsamic moon phase, when you are really reflecting of what's come past at that time. And so it is absolutely appropriate to set the same intention again if you want to go deeper. So you may feel like you have created some relaxation and calm and some peace in your life, but you realize that you have further to go and you want more of that sense of flow and grace and ease. And so set that intention again and go deeper in the next moon cycle. Or it might be, that you are wanting to find the right person to enter into a committed, intimate partnership or relationship with. And it might be in one moon cycle that you realize, elements, patterns that have been playing out in your past relationships, which have been preventing you from really entering into the relationship quality that you are seeking. And it may be that you set the same intention or a tweaked intention because you've progressed or you have got to learn a little bit more about yourself, but on the same theme in the next moon cycle. So it's absolutely appropriate to keep working on the same intention or the same theme. But it's also appropriate, to change and to work on something else and to come back to whatever it is. It's always a matter of tuning in with yourself and picking what feels most right for you at any one time, knowing that you're not in a contract with your intention. You can absolutely course correct at any one time, but the invitation is to pick one intention in a moon cycle and then go through the whole practice, because it is a deep practice and it can be very profound. It's a very safe and gentle practice, but then it can be a very transformative practice as well. So to pick one intention and then to really show up to that one intention throughout the whole moon cycle. If you've realized you've set the wrong intention, by all means, course correct or tweak your intention. But if you're noticing that you're sort of chopping and changing all the time in one particular moon cycle with your intention, the invitation might be to, really just show up with yourself around and be honest with yourself. Are you picking an intention at that new moon phase which really is resonating as a full body yes? Are you picking something which is so true and near and dear to your heart? Are you being courageous enough to really claim what it is that you want? Because a month isn't a super long time. That's one of the reasons why the moon cycle is such a great cycle to work with, because it is short enough to really keep your interest. It should be short enough to keep your interest on something that's very live for you. It's very trackable, it's observable, and you should see results within 1 month, within one moon cycle, with an intention that you're working with.
Amazing. Ezzie, thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing all this incredible knowledge with us. How can people find you if they want to go deeper?
Yeah, so I am on lunar-abundance.com is my website, and there's a bunch of free resources like that free lunar planner with all of the dates of all of the 8 moon phases beyond the new and the full moon. If you're interested in starting to work with this in your life, you can download that. There's free meditations, a free chart of all of the 8 moon phases over there on the website, lunar-abundance.com. The book is called Lunar Abundance, Cultivating Joy, Peace and Purpose Using the Phases of the Moon. It's available wherever books are sold, so you can type it into Google or go into your local bookstore. It's in the US and the UK and around the world. And then on Instagram, I invite you to come and follow me. I'm Ezzie Spencer on Instagram, and I post about each one of those 8 phases in real time with a prompt, just a little reminder. People love having this come up on their news feed, their Insta feed, they tell me, because it just gives you that like heads up, like, hey, it's a yin phase, hey, it's a yang phase. This is an opportunity just to pause what it is that you're doing and to tune back into your intention, what it is that you're creating at this time. And it's really fun to see what other lunar abundance, practitioners around the world are doing. There's tens of thousands of people now around the world working with the lunar abundance practice, and it's a really fun sense of community over there on Instagram as well.
Wonderful. Well, I'll put all those links below. And Savannah listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, if you enjoyed this episode, the best thing to do is to leave a rating or review here on iTunes, even if iTunes isn't how you normally listen to the show. Thanks for being here all the way to the very end. I'm sending you love and blessings, and spend some time tonight looking at the moon, and who knows where it will take you. I will talk to you next week. So much love from my heart to yours. Namaste.
You've been listening to the Savannah Podcast. To find out more about Savannah, go to savannahspirit.com or follow Savannah on Facebook at facebook.com/Savannah Spirit. For daily inspiration, check out our blog at savannaeast.com. Be sure to join us next week for a new episode, and thank you for listening to the Savannah Podcast.